She's been called one of country music's greatest voices. For over half a century, Connie Smith has been a beloved member of the Grand Ole Opry. Her very first single, Once a Day, hit #1 and parked there for an incredible 8 weeks, a record for a female artist that stood for nearly 50 years. To the world, Connie Smith was the picture of grace, a constant, reassuring presence on country music's most sacred stage. She was the quintessential Opry star, the embodiment of its traditions of faith, family, and timeless music, but lately, behind that serene smile and those sparkling rhinestones, a different story has started to bubble up from the depths of the internet. It's a story of a painful secret she was supposedly forced to keep about the Nashville institution she called home. This new narrative, built from whispers and alleged documentaries, claims that Connie Smith was sidelined, silenced, and nearly broken by the very place that was meant to protect her. Now, this story of the Opry's dark side is making the rounds, and it's darker than many fans could have ever imagined. So today, we're going to pull on that thread. We'll explore the shocking allegations that have surfaced, claiming a history of threats, betrayals, and systemic suppression. We're going to examine the evidence, or the lack of it, behind these claims. And we will separate the documented facts from the dramatic fictions to get to the real story. What truly happened to Connie Smith behind the Opry curtain? Was she a victim of shadowy politics, or is this whole story a modern myth that speaks to a different, but equally important, truth about the struggles of women in country music? The line between rumor and reality gets blurry in Nashville, but today, we're going to find it. For more than 50 years, Connie Smith was expected to play a part, the ever-graceful, unfailingly loyal Opry member. But recent online reports and a supposed documentary allege that this loyalty came at a huge personal cost. They paint a picture of an artist allegedly pressured into silence, whose contracts were used as weapons against her, and whose spirit was nearly crushed by a male-dominated power structure. These stories claim that for decades, Smith was a silent witness to a world of favoritism, whispered threats, and unforgiving politics. Now, while Connie Smith herself has never made these claims in any public, verified way, the story that has been built around her has become a seismic event in country music lore. It's a story that, true or not, forces us to ask some very uncomfortable questions about the price of fame for women in Nashville. The most shocking part of this new narrative centers on a secret diary. According to these unsourced reports, Connie Smith meticulously documented her experiences inside the Opry for years. This wasn't just a log of tour dates and standing ovations. It was supposedly a ledger of every slight, a record of professional sabotage, and a chronicle of the casual cruelty of a boys' club that saw her as a beautiful voice, but never an equal. The diary allegedly named names, detailed conversations where she was told to know her place, and noted every single time a promised opportunity mysteriously went to a man instead. It was said to be her private insurance policy, a record of the truth she couldn't dare speak aloud, and the story gets even darker. As the tale goes, this diary, her only real proof, simply vanished. It was supposedly stolen from her dressing room, a bold move meant to disarm her completely. But what allegedly followed was straight-up psychological warfare. The narrative claims that soon after the theft, Smith got an anonymous phone call. There was no voice, just a recording of her own performance of Once a Day, played backward. The message couldn't have been clearer: we have your voice, we have your story, and we can twist it, distort it, and erase it whenever we want. You are powerless. This story is cinematic, it's terrifying, and it's the cornerstone of the Opry's dark side narrative. But here's the thing, for all its dramatic power, there is not a single shred of verifiable evidence to support it. As of mid-2025, no credible news source, authorized biography, or public statement from Smith has ever mentioned a diary, its theft, or that intimidating phone call. This specific, harrowing tale appears to be pure unsubstantiated lore, a potent anecdote that fuels the larger story of her suppression, but an unproven one. However, while the stolen diary may be fiction, the fear of speaking out in Nashville was very, very real, especially for women. The fear of being blacklisted was something you could feel in the air. Artists knew that if they complained or pushed back against a powerful figure, their careers could just stop. Radio stations would stop taking calls. Tour invitations would dry up. Even a coveted spot on the Grand Ole Opry could be at risk. This climate of fear didn't need overt threats, it was enforced by the quiet, cautionary tales of those who came before. Just look at the case of Skeeter Davis. In 1973, Davis, a huge Opry star, was suspended for over a year. Her crime? During her performance, she dedicated a song to a group of young Christian missionaries who'd been arrested in Nashville and commented on the police's actions. The Opry management called her comments inappropriate and political, and the punishment was swift. The message to every other artist was crystal clear: don't you dare step out of line. The suspension of a star as big as Skeeter Davis was a powerful, public warning that nobody was untouchable. This real-life event created a climate where an artist like Connie Smith would have understood, without needing any stolen diaries, that silence was often the smartest career move. The fear was real, even if the legends are just legend. Another explosive claim that has surfaced is the existence of a secret, red list, at the Grand Ole Opry. This wasn't some official document, but an unspoken, unwritten blacklist of artists who were considered difficult, or who had simply fallen out of favor with the powers that be. According to these rumors, if you landed on this list, your performance slots would suddenly shrink. You'd get the death slot, first on for the night or last before closing, when the audience was either just trickling in or already heading for the exits. It meant being left out of TV specials and other big events. It was a slow, quiet career strangulation. The narrative alleges that Connie Smith found herself on this list. Her supposed crime wasn't one big act of rebellion, but a quiet, steady refusal to play the political games. She was focused on her music, her family, and her faith. The story goes that she wasn't aggressive enough for the new wave of management, who were starting to see the Opry less as a piece of history and more as a business. Her traditional sound, which should have been her greatest asset, was allegedly reframed as a problem. She was a legend, but she wasn't a hit-making machine like the newer, pop-country acts. And so, the story goes, she was subtly pushed to the margins. The most damning part of this allegation involves a private conversation with another country music icon, Dolly Parton. The unverified story claims that Dolly, a master at navigating Nashville's political waters, privately warned Connie she was being put on the shelf. Dolly allegedly told her that management saw her as too pure for modern country and that if she didn't start playing ball, her legacy would be gathering dust while she was still alive to perform. Again, we have to look at this with a critical eye. The red list is pure speculation. And the alleged conversation between Connie and Dolly? It's entirely unsubstantiated. There's no public record or credible report to back it up. It's a powerful story, but without evidence, we have to treat it as fiction. However, the general idea behind it, that the Opry has a history of favoritism and has sidelined its older legends, is rooted in some hard truths. The best example is Stonewall Jackson. In 2008, the Waterloo singer, then 75 and an Opry member for over 50 years, filed an age discrimination lawsuit against the Opry. Jackson claimed that manager Pete Fisher was trying to systematically push him and other senior members out, slashing his performance slots and telling him that Opry audiences don't want to see old artists. That lawsuit, which was settled out of court, pulled back the curtain on a very real tension at the Opry, honoring its legacy versus chasing modern-day profits. It gave a voice to what many older artists reportedly felt, that they were being treated like museum pieces instead of living performers. This documented conflict shows that the spirit of the red list allegation rings true. The Opry was, at least at one point, demonstrably trying to sideline some of its veterans. While Connie Smith may not have been targeted. In the same way, she was absolutely working in this tense environment, where your age and your chart performance could directly affect your standing in that hallowed circle. The story of Connie Smith's silencing is often framed by the tough gender dynamics in country music. A key anecdote that's popped up involves a leaked interview, where Smith supposedly described the moment she realized just how dangerous it was for a woman to complain. According to this unverified account, another female artist confided in Smith about inappropriate behavior from a powerful industry figure tied to the Opry. This artist decided to report it. The story claims the backlash was swift and brutal, but not for the man she accused. The woman who spoke up was suddenly labeled hysterical and difficult. Her recording sessions were cancelled. Her Opry appearances vanished. Within a year, she was gone from Nashville, her career effectively erased. In this supposed interview, Smith called it a quiet execution, a warning shot to every other woman. The message was clear: your careers are conditional, and the condition is silence. This story of a leaked interview, like the other dramatic tales, is completely unsubstantiated. Searches for it in any reputable archive turn up absolutely nothing. It seems to be another fictional event cooked up to serve the narrative, but here's the thing: you don't need a fictional story to prove that women who pushed boundaries in country music faced serious consequences. You just need to look at history. Loretta Lynn, an icon of female empowerment, had her song, "The Pill," banned by dozens of radio stations in 1975. The song, which celebrated a woman's reproductive freedom, was so controversial there were whispers she might even lose her Opry membership over it. Even Dolly Parton faced resistance for songs like "Just Because I'm a Woman," which called out the double standards men and women were held to. And much more recently, in 2003, the Dixie Chicks, now the Chicks, saw their careers nearly destroyed overnight after criticizing the U.S. president. They were blacklisted from country radio and ostracized by the Nashville establishment. These aren't rumors. These are famous, documented cases of powerful women being punished for speaking their minds. This is the world Connie Smith built her career in. She saw firsthand what happened to women who were deemed too controversial. It gives you a pretty clear picture of why she, and many women of her generation, might have chosen a path of quiet dignity over public fights. Her silence may not have been caused by a specific, shadowy threat, but by a pragmatic response to a system that had proven, over and over, that it punished women who made waves. Her path was one of preservation, not provocation, and in 20th century Nashville, that was often the only way to survive. You can't talk about Connie Smith's later career without mentioning her marriage to fellow star Marty Stewart. Their relationship is one of country music's great love stories. Stewart was a lifelong fan who fell for her as a boy, and they finally married in 1997. Their partnership has given us beautiful music and countless touching moments. Marty has produced some of her most acclaimed recent albums, and together, they are a beloved fixture at the Opry, but this new, dark side narrative tries to weave a darker thread into this romance. The unsubstantiated claims suggest that even her marriage to an insider like Stewart couldn't shield her from the pressures of the modern Nashville machine. In fact, these stories allege it sometimes created new problems. The rumor is that Stewart, as her producer, sometimes pushed her to be more commercial than she wanted to be. He saw her genius and wanted the whole world to see it too, which meant making concessions to the market that Connie, the purist, just wouldn't make. One particularly cutting but totally unverified anecdote claims that in a moment of frustration, Marty introduced her at a small industry event as the legend who refuses to evolve. The comment wasn't supposed to be cruel, but a reflection of his own struggle to get the industry to give her the attention he knew she deserved. But for Connie, the story goes, it felt like a betrayal, as if even her biggest champion saw her traditionalism as a problem to be solved. Let's be perfectly clear, there is absolutely no public evidence to support this. The story about Marty's comment is uncorroborated and runs completely contrary to everything they've ever said about their relationship. They have consistently spoken of their mutual respect, with Marty often acting as a protector of her legacy, not a critic. His production on her albums, like The Cry of the Heart, is celebrated for its authentic, traditional sound, the very thing these rumors claim was a source of conflict. So why would a story like this even get started? It's likely because it taps into a real tension many artistic couples face, where the personal ends and the professional begins. It also plays on the history of female artists having their careers managed, and sometimes micromanaged, by their husbands. From June Carter and Johnny Cash to Tammy Wynette and George Jones, country music is full of couples whose collaborations were brilliant but tangled up in complex power dynamics. The story about Connie and Marty, though almost certainly fictional, uses their beloved relationship to explore this theme. The reality seems to be one of profound support. Marty Stewart didn't just marry his hero, he became the guardian of her flame, making sure it wasn't snuffed out by changing trends. The fiction says he was part of the pressure, the truth is that he was, and still is, her greatest shield against it, and this is where the whole narrative is supposed to come together. The story culminates with the idea that Connie Smith, at 88 years old, has finally broken her silence in a dramatic new documentary. In it, she supposedly lays bare the decades of being sidelined, the weaponized contracts, and the devastating personal toll. Her testimony is framed as a final, defiant act of courage, a reckoning that could shake the Grand Ole Opry to its foundations. This is the heroic climax of the story. The silenced legend finally finds her voice. But this climax has one major problem: it never happened. As of July 2025, there is no documentary titled, At 88, Connie Smith finally breaks her silence on the Opry's dark side. There has been no major interview, no public statement, no exposé where Connie Smith has made any of these allegations. The entire premise of her breaking her silence appears to be a complete fabrication. Connie Smith continues to be a respected, active member of the Grand Ole Opry, and her public comments about it remain overwhelmingly positive. So, what do we make of all this? Why would someone build such a detailed, dramatic, and largely false story of suffering around an artist known for her privacy and grace? The answer might be that this dark side narrative isn't really about Connie Smith at all. It's a vessel. It's a composite story, a piece of modern folklore that uses a beloved, unimpeachable figure to tell a larger, more complicated truth. The specific allegations, the diary, the red list, the leaked interview, may be fiction, but the themes they stand for are very real. Gender discrimination in country music? Real. The sidelining of legacy artists for younger, more profitable acts? Also real, as Stonewall Jackson's lawsuit proved. A culture of secrecy and fear of being blacklisted for speaking out? Just ask Skeeter Davis or the Chicks. This narrative takes all these real, systemic problems and condenses them into the personal saga of one woman. It creates a hero and a villain because that's a much more compelling story than a sociological study on gender disparity in radio airplay. It's a legend, and like all legends, it's not about literal history, but about the lesson it teaches. Connie Smith's true legacy isn't that of a silenced victim who finally spoke out. It's one of resilience, integrity, and artistic purity in the face of a fickle industry. She survived not by playing the games, but by refusing to. She built her career on the unshakable foundation of her voice and her commitment to real country music. She outlasted trends, executives, and controversies by simply being Connie Smith. The fictional narrative paints her as a victim of the Opry's dark side. But the truth might be even more powerful. She was a woman who saw the politics and the sexism of her industry and chose to rise above it all with sheer talent and grace. She didn't need to expose the darkness, because she was, and is, a shining light. In the end, the story of Connie Smith finally breaks her silence tells us a lot more about our current moment than it does about Connie Smith. We live in an age that's hungry for accountability, that wants to uncover the hidden injustices of the past. We want our heroes to have triumphed over not just obstacles, but over secret, systemic rot. This narrative gives us that satisfying story, but in chasing that story, the line between fact and fiction has been completely erased. The Real Connie Smith remains a figure of immense dignity and a testament to the power of traditional country music. And the real history of the Opry already contains plenty of documented controversies, from age discrimination to censorship, that don't need any embellishment. Perhaps the most important takeaway is this: the struggles of women in country music have been so real and so pervasive that it feels plausible that even a figure as respected as Connie Smith could have a secret story of suppression. The rumors resonate not because they're true, but because they could be. They reflect a fundamental truth that for much of its history, the Nashville establishment was a difficult, and at times unjust, place for women. Connie Smith's actual story is one of enduring artistry. The fictional story that has grown around her is a testament to the battles that she, and every other woman in country music, had to navigate, whether they ever spoke of them aloud or not.